You can hear my dialect that I'm not a native English speaker, so I apologize for that. I come fresh out of Gartner conference. I came from Barcelona this morning, where we had a lot of rain, but we also had a lot of good inputs on regulation and what is coming, especially AI. Keepit is making backup of all the things that you didn't think you need backup of. If you talk about 365, talk about Entra ID, AWS, you probably think that Microsoft or Google are protecting your data and making sure that you have backup of it. But if you look at the contract, that's not really the case. I will get a little deeper into that in a minute. First, I will talk a bit about myself. That's our marketing who made that slide, I'm sorry. I'm actually coming a little sideways into IT because I used to be a police officer for 23 years. I worked with serious crime, and I ended up working with serious crime against children. And then I came to the Security and Intelligence Service in Denmark and was the CISO there for a number of years. I worked as a delegate to NATO and EU and tried to build compliance in those environments, which was quite complicated. Worked a lot with SOCA from the UK and a lot of the government entities here. So I sort of came in sideways to this, and I have this protective approach to security that you also will see when I talk about contingency planning in a while. Also been to Systematic, who are building big defense systems, amongst others, to the UK Army. So I worked with critical data for most of my life. Now we're trying to back it up. We will talk about data classification. We will talk about data governance, disaster recovery, and maybe if we have some time, we will also talk about incident investigation, looking at your way of contingency planning and your recovery phases when it comes to actually discover what had happened. If I speak too fast, throw something after me, or too unclear, or something else. Just, yeah. Good. I will talk a little about the threats. I know a lot of people are talking about threats in general, so I will start with something I worked with as a CISO in other companies I've been to. Because if we look what happens today, if we look at SolarWind, for example, SolarWind was a product, it's a company that was infiltrated probably by the Russians. And when you downloaded the update to your use of SolarWind, you took the malicious software that the Russians had put into SolarWind directly into the belly of your system. It was a trusted application that you updated, and you didn't discover that anything was wrong until someone called you and said, there's something going on in your system. That's very complicated to discover. That's very complicated to work with as a security, as a CISO, which I am. I can't remember if I told you that, but I'm a CISO, I keep it, sorry. That's very complicated to deal with because that needs you to be deep into your system and understand your system. If you look at CrowdStrike, Perfect Storm, it's not anyone who has any intent to destroy anything, but it's the things that happens. It's the things that suddenly the perfect storm happened, and both Microsoft and CrowdStrike had made an error on the same day. What do you do? How do you do contingency planning? And that's a world we look into. We look into very, very complex attacks. We are very, very dependent on our infrastructure and others' infrastructure that actually made us very vulnerable for something that we cannot really do something about. Because when you work with SolarWind, for example, who knows your system so deep so that they can go in and detect what has actually gone on? And I will get back to that in a bit. But the threat landscape today is very complex. It's moving outside our own borders because we are dependent on a lot of other things than ourselves. Because we're using a lot of SaaS applications, it's growing rapidly, our use of external applications. The cyber threats, as I said before, are growing. And at the same time, we have all these regulations coming in, like NIS2, GDPR. I know you're not that impacted by that, but you probably are. In the US, they have others. We have the Cyber Resilience Act. There's a lot of things coming up that potentially can damage your business very, very hard. So how do you work with that when you at the same time put your infrastructure out to someone else? We have made investigations that a normal enterprise has more than 450 SaaS applications, meaning that it's other applications that might be from HR, probably from marketing. They always have a lot of stuff that they need. It's applications that you don't control in your own infrastructure. So you, as a CISO, has to make, or a CIO, need to say, okay, this is not under my control. It's an external partner that actually handles a lot of data for my company. It's an external party who are responsible for keeping our business alive, and I have no impact on that. And that can come for sales. They are very good at finding Salesforce, for example, is a good example. Marketing, HR, etc. You have a lot of applications running in your network that you don't control. Shadow IT, that depends on others. So as a CISO, it's important to keep the control, assuring that you have made a risk assessment. How many have a process for risk assessing SaaS applications in your company? Quite a few, that's good. Yeah. How many is responsible for SaaS applications in the company? Almost the same. Excellent. Yeah. But that's how it is. There's a lot of things coming into a company, and sometimes someone just buy it. I had to go down to my finance and say, can you tell me how many applications are bought on company credit cards? So I got a list when I asked people saying, are you running applications that are not controlled by us and that are not approved by us? And everybody said, no. Or they might say, we have a few. But when I took the list from the credit cards, I got a total different number. And now we have implemented endpoint protection and all this stuff, so now I can begin to control it even more. But getting that control, assuring that you have the risk assessment made, there are an owner that actually says, okay, HR, now you're putting all the personal data of all our employees out in this company. Do we trust them? It's your responsibility, it's not mine. The risk is yours, the data is yours, and you need to tell me that it's okay. The same at finance, and if you look at sales, suddenly you put all our new leads into a system. It might be Salesforce, we trust them. It might be something else. Do we trust them? It might be a competitor that suddenly can see where we're going, in what direction you're going. It could be intellectual property, if we work with that suddenly are outside your organization. And the important part is to tell your people, this is your risk. You need to think about what data you put there, and we talk about the risk together, and in the end of the day, it's your responsibility. So that's a good discussion to have, because then you need to involve your HR director, you need to involve your finance director, and when you tell them it's their risk, they're like, no, I don't think so. But you can also see the amount of data that potentially could be there. In our company, 95% of our customers, they're looking at 365, and they're looking at Entra ID. How many of you have a backup of your 365? Oh, that's good. Excellent. That's more than it was at Gartner. Or maybe you're listening more careful, I don't know. But still, it's a lot of people. And that's good, because people think that it's actually Microsoft that back up your data, but it's not. And when you work with Microsoft, if you have an incident with Microsoft, I don't know how many of you have tried that. I will not ask that question. But if you work with Microsoft, it most often comes back to contracts, the level of customer you are, so for what support you get. So that's quite difficult to work with them. I'm not blaming Microsoft, because they have a business model that is very good, and they're also very good companies, so it's not that. It's just you as a company need to rely on yourself, and you need to have your own plan. So it's about contingency planning. It's about knowing which applications are critical to your industry. It's about knowing what data you need to have available when something happens, and it's about having a process of getting to your feet. Because if you think a backup is a backup, for example, and that you just go to your guy who sits in the basement who says, yeah, we have it all on tape and we can do whatever, that's not the way it happens. You need to think about what data do we need first. So you have these processes saying, what do we need in 4 hours? What do we need in 1 hour? What do we need in 6 hours? Whatever. But what is really important for us to get on our feet? When CrowdStrike hits, I was at Milan train station, and there were like, I think, 10 TGV trains kept there. They couldn't go anywhere. So people were sitting in the trains. They couldn't even tell people that they could not leave, because they didn't have like a plan for communicating if the screens wasn't working. So it was totally chaos, and Italian train stations is always a mess, but then it was a real mess. But talking contingency, it might be very important that you get that up and running in a certain speed. So when you as an enterprise need to work on your contingency planning, it's about saying, okay, what do we need first? What do we need second? and how do we get alive. And that's all about data governance. That's about, as we talked about before with the SaaS applications, telling your people that what is the crucial data? What data do you put in an application that are not owned by you? What is our service level agreement with this company that you can actually say, okay, if you're not in the air, what do we do then? If 365 is not available, what do you do? Some of you have a plan for that, I guess. You had a backup. Have you tested it? How many of you have tested it? I ask in that way. For real? Good. Because making a real exercise, working with this data governance and say, okay, my data is gone. What do we do? That's the difficult part. So it's about when you do this data governance, when you do your contingency planning, looking at your systems, how do they become available, your data categories, and your governance structure. I think most of us have a classification policy that says secret, confidential, and whatever it could be. But this is not what we're talking about here. This is about criticality of data. Saying, what do we need? What systems do we need to be available? What data categories do we have? And what governance structure do we have around it? Because if you think you protect everything and say, okay, we have a good security all around our company, then you protect nothing. Because if you don't governance your data, if you don't sort of leverage the data that you need access to, then you don't have an overview and it doesn't work. So it's always making the right risk assessment, saying, okay, we need this to keep our company alive. We need sort of to do the risk assessment and saying, what can we live without and what do we need to have up and running in a certain speed. And we have the NIST framework. I talked to a guy just before about the NIST framework that I like very much, and that is very, very good. We have the NIST 800 series, which sort of is equal to ISO 27001. And it's very good to sort of establish a framework for making risk assessment in a way that people understand. Because you need to have your people to understand, to work together on your people. I cannot, as the CISO, say, okay, I do the risk assessment for you, because I do it together with the people, as we talked about before. The risk is for the HR department, the research department, the OT department, but we work together on making the risk right. So it's all about these things, also from the NIST. It's about identifying the asset you have, protecting them in the right way, detect if something happens, and being able to respond and recover from an attack. And when we talk about contingency planning, it is not having all the eggs in the same basket. And that's what most often happens when we talk about AWS, when we talk about Microsoft, because you rely on one provider, one vendor. So having a second plan or a third plan is always a very good idea. That was not supposed to come there. Okay, I'm missing a slide, but it's okay. We are doing regional backup. That was what I had, like the world. We have like data centers all around the world. And the dependency, especially today, maybe more than 2 days ago, the independency, having your data in your own region, having it in your own country, can be very, very important, especially today if you lose a connection to something which is placed in another way. And this is all about communication. I have 1.5 minutes. This is all about communication. It's about defining the risks in the right way, being able to communicate to board. I've been to board meetings in another company I were in where we had a 2 and a 3-star general in the board. You don't waste that time. You need to be very precise on what you're talking about. And that's about communicating in the right way, putting the risk right, what is most important, what is critical to the company, and what do you need to do to actually get to a certain point, and how many money do I need to get there. It's all about disaster recovery, and I think I will stop there. I can go. No, I don't know what to say.
I just start hovering when people get to about a minute.
Sorry?
I start hovering when it's about a minute to go.
Excellent, thank you.
You're at 37 seconds.
Okay, but then I will jump to this because this is actually what it was all about. No, disaster recovery, and we have guidelines. I think this too is good for our companies in EU and the companies general, because it helps you to put a certain level. This too requires you to actually do the test I was asking you if you did before. Because a lot of people have said that they did the test, they have a backup plan, they have a policy for it, but they never tested it for real. With NIS2 and also with DORA, you need to actually prove that you have done it. Also with some of the US regulations, the FedRAMP, you need to prove that you actually do the test and provide the results from the test, assuring that you actually did the right risk assessment, the right testing, and are able to get on your feet. How much time do I have now?
You're on -10.
10 minutes?
-10 seconds.
Ah, okay. Excellent. I'm confused.
So I'm going to start dragging you off in a second.
Sorry?
I have to start dragging you off in a second.
But I'm actually I'm done now. I will just finalize it. But it's about taking all these risk assessments, taking the frameworks, and putting them into a governance structure where you say, okay, NIS 2, I have ISO 27001, I have other regulations, and sort of correlating them, so that you don't, when you have a NIS 2, saying this is totally new for us, we need to start all over again. No, most of us have done risk assessment. We might use the NIST framework to do it. And you can actually correlate that into the requirements from the NIST 2 and sort of get a good foundation for your company to be able to continue if something happening. Yeah.
Thank you.